Okay, so here we go. Another day working on the Tahoe. Just going to put the water pump on today, probably the AC bracket, the water pump, and I'm going to do whatever else I can to it today to get this thing closer to being able to start up and get it in tune. So I'll do a little videoing and then we'll probably just do some time lapse along with it. Just going to show you what we've got so far. I have a brand new water pump. It's ready to go. I cleaned all the bolts, cleaned all the mating surfaces. I decided to do this because I stood here looking at it and the water pump was just staring me in the face. So I thought, about the time I get it all back together and fill the thing up with coolant, start it. Summer's here, it's going to get nice and hot here in the next couple of weeks. I figured the old water pump's going to start leaking. I don't know the history of this motor. I feel it came out of a wrecking yard. I do not know, but I'm just trying to make the best of what it has in it for now. So sit back, watch, enjoy, and hopefully I don't run into too many problems. Okay, so this is how I paint bolts. Clean them up, soak them in lacquer thinner, gunk, get them nice and clean, get the heads clean. Sometimes I wire brush them. And then I just take a piece of cardboard like this, punch holes in it with a screwdriver, whatever size bolts you need. Put them in the cardboard like that, spray paint them. Easy. On a lot of different vehicles, I take a lot of pictures as I take them apart. I also just throw the bolts in plastic baggies and I just mark what they are, especially if it's going to sit a while like this has. And sometimes you'll forget, at least with my memory you'll forget. So it's always good to mark them, take plenty of pictures, makes it easier for references. You'll see me sometimes in the videos looking at my phone. I'm looking through pictures for reference. This engine got pulled apart probably 2-3 months ago, so it's definitely very helpful. Okay, so here is the power steering bracket and the air conditioning bracket. I bead blasted it. Actually, I degreased it first, hosed it off, dried it real good, and then I just used my little cheap handheld bead blaster just to see how it did. Didn't do too bad of a job. The problem is, you know, I used a finer sand, but it's still a rough surface, so anytime grease touches it, it's just going to stain it. But I'm not painting it, I'm not polishing it or anything like that. It's just going back on basically the way it was from the factory. Everybody's leaving. Should have sent her on a parts run. I'm sure there's something I need. But it's Memorial Day and she's actually going to work, so anybody who needs a, you know, funeral plot, celebration of life, all those type of arrangements that we don't really want to think about or deal with. That's what she does. Alright. That's basically on there. Not too bad. Once you get all the accessories off of these engines, again, there's not much to them. Kind of like a small block Chevy. Looks very similar, but I think it's definitely built a lot cheaper. A lot of plastic. Alright, we can try to stick the power steering pump on now. I did not disconnect the hoses. I left it hanging in here. Hopefully it doesn't give me too much of a struggle, but got to show the struggles along with the easy things too. So if I get cussing, I'll just have to edit it out, that's all. Hopefully I'm not blocking your view. Most likely I am. We'll get you back. Might have to take the bracket back off and slide this in there first, which is most likely what I'll have to do. So we're going to take this bracket back off, and then I can hang the power steering pump up there. There's two mounting bolts up there, and you have slotted brackets on the power steering pump. We should be able to hang it on there. If anybody's just replacing the power steering pump itself, you're going to be disconnecting the hoses anyway, so you should be able to get it out either through the top here or out the bottom. But since I'm down this far, it's just easier for me to take the bracket back off and then hang it up, because the pulley will sit outside of this bracket. You actually have to take the pulley off to get the power steering pump off and the bracket off, because there are 3 bolts behind it that bolt the power steering pump on. Then I can take the camera and show you where the brackets and everything are on this thing. That should sit right there. Alright. So you can see that. There is a nut on a stud right there where my finger is. Kind of hard to see in the dark, but you loosen it up. The bracket is slotted. There's another bracket down just below the exhaust manifold. Don't know if you can see that. And it's also slotted, so you can hang the power steering pump on just like that. Okay, so I'll try to show you guys where these mounting brackets are for the power steering pump. And you can just hang it on there. I had to take that bracket back off. If you ever have to just remove the power steering pump, you're going to remove your hoses anyway. And you will probably have to remove the AC bracket to get it off, because if you look, there are 1, 2, 3 holes that they use that bracket bolts to. So I had to put the power steering pump back on, down in between, down in here, there's a stud sticking out, and it's a slotted bracket. There's another one back over right behind the exhaust manifold. It's back up in here. It's a tough one to see. It's also slotted, so you can hang the power steering pump on there as it is right here, and we should be able to slide the mounting bracket for the air conditioning compressor back on, and then your pulley will press back on. Kind of an odd setup, definitely different than a regular small block or big block Chevy. So we're going to go ahead and put that AC bracket back on now. Didn't need that anyway. No, actually we did, but we're going to have to find it. Alright, that's back on there. Now, it'll be nice to find that bolt that just fell. So we might have to do that off camera. But, oh well. We gotta kind of feel around and find out where the mounting holes are and stuff. There we go. I can feel that now. Get them all threaded in there first before you go tightening them down. I would even thread in the bolts for the power steering pump, the 3. I'm going to turn the camera off and find my other bolt instead of boring you. Alright, after a few minutes of looking, I finally found it. I'm going to have to use this to get it. Telescoping magnet. Right down in here between the radiator and the core support is a big long bolt. How it fell down there, who knows? Smallest area it could fit into, enough to drive me nuts to try to find it. But we got it, and it goes right there. So put all these in loose. We'll put the bolts in for the 3 for the power steering pump. Put them in loose also. This is a very odd setup. If you ever have to do the power steering pump, there's quite a bit involved. Again, I put everything in bags, label it, power steering. These ones I already cleaned up. Sometimes in the evening, not much to do. I just go out to the garage and I'll clean up the bolts and nuts, clean the threads. Sometimes I paint them, sometimes I don't. If they're really visible, I'll usually paint them. But of course, you're not going to see these. And you can very easily take nail polish remover or anything and take the lettering off and just reuse it. In commercial aviation, we had cloth bags with drawstrings on them, and they had tags on them. You could actually write what they were for. These engines also, I've kind of noticed, very weird. Sometimes I'll find out metrics fits better, sometimes I find out standard fits better. So it's a good possibility that they might have used both kinds, you know. Loosen those back up. Actually, they are loose. So it's going to be just on feel so that you can get the 3 in the power steering pump. I'm going to have to figure out how to get them in there. Just got to kind of try to line things up. These are the games that you play. I do have a habit of sometimes cussing engineers. Sometimes I wonder what they're thinking. I have a feeling that very few of them ever came right from the floor and out of a toolbox into designing something. Just to me, they should probably come out of a toolbox first. Because there's things that us backyard guys and even the professionals will modify as you go along. And a lot of times you do it because it makes easier access and it makes better sense and it actually makes everything perform a little bit better. I'm only cussing if I have a bad day. Alright, finish tightening all these up. And then I'm gonna clean up the shaft on the power steering pump. It's been in the garage, but actually, I just need to clean up the shaft a little bit because it's got a little bit of dirt. Just a couple of small spots of surface rust on there. So we'll clean it up before we put it back on. I'll get out my pulley remover and installer. I have to read the instructions every time because I don't use it that often, so that's what's up with that. And we need to put our nut back on here. I did find those, which is nice. So we'll check everything out one last time before it's going to end up getting covered. Okay, so this turned in to be kind of a pain in the ass. Just putting the power steering pump pulley on. I have a tool for removal and installation. I don't use it that often. Removing it is much easier. So when I went to install, I put the tool on there the way it needs to be. I held a wrench on this side while I tightened the nut to push the pulley on. It would go on a certain way distance, and then it would stop and the pulley would start spinning as I tried to install it the rest of the way. So I wrestled around with that, thinking that there was a burr or something. I took the pulley off, cleaned everything back up. I put a little bit of grease on the shaft and the pulley to kind of help it. And then I switched and I let the wrench lean up against the frame right there as I tightened it down, and I did hold on to the pulley also, which it was just enough for me to be able to put it on there. So if you're looking and having that same issue, hang on to it with your hand. You can hang on just enough and it'll work for you. But so that was my issue today, but that's all right. This is not a primary vehicle. Plus, I wanted to take my time and try to make this thing run as good as possible, so we can use it in the future on a daily basis if we have to. So this is pretty much what we got done today, and I'll pick back up another day